You're watching a Highwire Media podcast.
Hello and welcome to the True Crime Never Sleeps podcast. As always, I'm your host, Larry Elise. And usually on Murder Monday, we dive into a murder case. But as we head into the new year, we're going to talk about one of the biggest stories, I think, of 2024. And that is, of course, the Idaho murders and Bryan Kohberger. But right now, we're going to dive into confidential source, who it could be, and what it means to the case. Of course, if you got your theories in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts. But with that, let's dive into today's topic. Revelation of a confidential source emerging at the last minute in the case has everyone talking. This person has not been publicly identified, but they could be pivotal in shaping the defense's narrative. The defense is exploring the possibility that the house where the murders took place was involved in illegal drug activity. This would be a way for the defense to create a potential alternative theory for the crime, one that shifts suspicion to other possible perpetrators who might have ties to the drug world. But there's a huge problem with this theory. The autopsies performed on the victims showed no traces of drugs in their system. So is this just a defense fishing for any angle, or do they know something we don't? It's unclear if the source's information is going to lead anywhere substantial. It could be an attempt to create confusion or set up a more believable defense story. The idea that the surviving victims, like the two young women who were in the house that night, might be involved in this confidential source angle raises even more questions. Could they have been involved in something bigger than we initially thought? It's still too early to know for sure, but the longer the identity of the source remains hidden, the more it keeps us on edge. So what's the deal with this confidential source? This is where things get truly wild. We know the father of Kaylee Goncalves has been actively searching for this confidential source. Apologies for butchering his name, which is already stirring the pot among the FBI. The FBI has stepped in and warned him not to get involved, which is raising all kinds of red flags. If the FBI is issuing such a warning, this source might have information that could either confirm or disrupt key aspects of the case. The speculation is thick. Could this source be someone like a witness who survived that night? Or could they have ties to a more underground world of criminal activity? There's even a possibility that this figure is someone very close to the victims, such as a family member or someone from the surrounding community. However, until we have more concrete details, it's all just educated guesswork. Another fascinating angle is how the father of Kaylee has taken such a strong interest in tracking down this source. If he gets too close, could he inadvertently interfere with the investigation? Could his actions be seen as an attempt to steer the case in a specific direction? These are the questions that add a layer of tension and mystery to an already complicated case. Now we're going to take a look at genetic genealogy and the DNA that could break or make the case. Genetic genealogy is at the heart of this case. The knife sheath found at the scene of the murders was a crucial breakthrough. DNA on the button of the sheath was matched to Bryan Kohberger through a cheek swab that was taken after his arrest. This match is solid and has been one of the main reasons Kohberger is now facing charges. The defense, however, has its sights set on excluding this DNA evidence from the trial. Why? They're trying to cast doubt on the reliability of genetic genealogy as a tool for solving crimes. The defense could argue that the process itself is flawed or that it wasn't conducted properly. If successful, this could force the prosecution to abandon one of its most critical pieces of evidence. But here's where things get tricky. The DNA match is not the only piece of evidence pointing to Kohberger. It's the knife sheath itself, which is a pretty strong physical piece of evidence. The defense's push to keep this evidence out could backfire, making them look like they're trying to hide something. If they can't shake the DNA evidence, they might go after how it was obtained. This will certainly be a key battleground in the legal process, as the judge will need to decide whether it's admissible. Ultimately, the real question here is, can the defense make the jury doubt the legitimacy of the DNA evidence enough to sway their opinion, or will it stand as irrefutable link between Kohberger and the crime scene? And then, now, we're going to take a brief look at the venue change and a shift in the legal strategy. The change of venue is a huge development in this case. Originally, the trial was set to take place in Idaho, where the murders occurred. Now it's been moved to Boise. But why does this matter? Well, Judge Hippler, that's Hippler, not what it could sound like, who will now oversee the case, might lean more towards being sympathetic to the defense. This could mean more chances for the defense to argue for excluding certain evidence or questioning the validity of the investigation. Judge Hippler's reputation is important here. In his initial remarks, he came out swinging, saying he didn't want to start the trial with a lie. This is a bold stance, and it's clear that he doesn't want any pretense in the courtroom. If he's someone who's less likely to play favorites and is more interested in ensuring a fair trial, it could be a great opportunity for the defense to push back harder against the prosecution's evidence. A change in venue can also affect the jurors' perspectives. Moving the case out of the immediate area where the crime occurred might reduce the emotional impact of the trial, allowing the defense to present a more neutral case. This will be something to watch closely as the jury is selected and the case progresses. And now we're going to talk about that little questionable alibi that Brian Kober has given. Koberger's alibi is an interesting piece of the puzzle. The defense claims that he was out stargazing in a wilderness park at 4 a.m. the night of the murders. Not only was it freezing with a cloudy sky, but there was no witnesses to verify his claim. On top of that, the wilderness park is isolated, making it difficult to prove or disprove the alibi with physical evidence. The question here is whether or not this alibi is credible. It feels a bit too convenient. The defense's argument is that Koberger was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But there's no solid evidence to back this up. The prosecution is likely to argue that this is just an elaborate story made up to cover his tracks. The more the defense emphasizes it, the more it risks looking like an attempt to distract from the hard evidence stacking up against Koberger. At this point, the alibi feels like a last-ditch effort to explain away a situation that doesn't make much sense, but whether it will hold water with the jury remains to be seen. Now we've got the death penalty debate. Idaho still allows the death penalty, but there's a bit of a problem here. The state has had trouble executing prisoners in the past. Most recently, an execution went terribly wrong. The state's attempt to execute a man, Thomas Cree, took over an hour and 8 failed attempts to find a vein that would work for the lethal injection. This botched execution raises serious ethical concerns about whether Idaho is even capable of carrying out the death penalty in a humane way. The defense will likely use this incident as an argument against the death penalty for Koberger. If they can prove that Idaho's execution methods are flawed, they could argue that it would be cruel and unusual punishment for Koberger to face such an execution. This would be a critical moment in the case, and the judge's ruling could heavily impact the final sentencing. And now, Dr. Remsen, apologies if I'm butchering her name wrong. Is she a confidential source? Dr. Remsen is Koberger's former criminology professor. He's a respected forensic psychologist with expertise in serial killers, and she had a relationship with Koberger as one of her star students. What makes this even more intriguing is that she's been in contact with Koberger's family since his arrest. She even offered her support to them, stating she didn't know if he was guilty or innocent, but would help guide them through the process. Did she be the one feeding crucial information to the defense or even law enforcement? It's unlikely, but she is a wild card in this case. If she's involved in any way, it could change the course of the investigation. However, it's just as possible that she's staying out of the spotlight, focused on her professional life, and working on her own book about serial killers. Till we know more, it's all just one more layer of speculation. Bottom line, the Brian Koberger case is unfolding like a crime thriller, with each new development adding a layer of complexity, from the mysterious confidential source, the debate over DNA evidence, and the looming death penalty question. There's no shortage of drama. The defense will use every tool in their arsenal to raise doubts. But whether it's enough to sway the jury remains to be seen. One thing's for sure, this case is far from over, and it's going to be one for the books. Keep your eyes peeled for every twist and turn, and of course, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification button to be notified of future videos on this case, with the trial starting, I believe it's 2025, I think, if I'm not wrong. Let me know your thoughts on this case in the comment section below. Of course, if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TCNS. As always, your support helps the channel grow, upgrade our equipment, bring in new hosts, be able to pay them, and one day take this show on the road. As always, we'd love to be able to do episodes from crime scene locations, past and present, and even possibly do episodes from trial. Your support can help make that happen. Whether it's $1, $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, whatever you give is greatly appreciated and goes directly into our channel. As always, if you can find us on all major podcast platforms, Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts from, just search True Crime Never Sleeps. And of course, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.